How are you? Are you feeling a little bit worried about the upcoming presidential elections? You might well be, because Trump is pulling ahead of Biden in the polls now, solidly. A disaster for America and for the world. Now, that's not a political point. We're just going to talk about this apolitically but substantively. Okay, so this is a serious, serious situation. And I've been predicting this, right? It's been months since I said things like the Democrats are blowing it. They're gonna lose their edge, and American democracy is in real danger. And when I say things like this, right, there's a predictable kind of response. People are like, what are you talking about? It's not going to happen. But here we are, a few months later, and sure enough, Trump has pulled solidly ahead of Biden in the polls. Okay, so recently we discussed this in the macro context, which is that in situations like the one America is in, stagnant economies, waves of destabilization ensue. So that's one way that I knew that Trump would pull ahead of Biden in the polls, and that's one reason I kept saying so. But there's another reason too, and it's a much more pragmatic one. If you see me making the pain face, it's because it is a painful reason to discuss. So the Democrats are fighting an uphill battle, true. There's a stagnant economy. It's not Biden's fault. It's a global problem. We call it a global cost of living crisis in my field, economics. But the Democrats do not need to make the mistakes they're making. So how do we know that they're making big mistakes? And I'm going to talk about this with you in the context of a couple of words that people don't like to put next to politics, at least people in the center and on the left: marketing and branding. Okay? Don't turn off the video. Listen to me. I promise you, this is very important and everybody needs to know about it. So, what do I mean by this? It would be one thing if Trump was just kind of randomly pulling ahead in the polls, one group of voters here and there, but there are really disturbing signs when we look at the numbers, okay? Trump has pulled ahead of Biden even with young people. Young people trust Trump more. They trust Trump more on the economy more. This is a huge signal that something is going badly wrong, that the Democrats are making a big mistake. Look, nobody should trust Trump more on anything, right? I mean, it's not a political point. This is not a guy who has a lot of credibility in any arena. He's a terrible businessman. He breaks his promises. He turns on his, lieutenants, whatever. So this is not a guy who should be trusted more on anything than anybody. So how did this happen? This is a big question, and it's a serious problem for the Democrats, okay? When you have somebody that has a fundamental lack of credibility, a huge one like Trump, pulling ahead of you, being trusted more, you are the one that's making the mistake, okay? So, fundamental branding and marketing errors are how you end up here. Now, I said on our side, we don't like to talk about this, right? We don't like to talk about this so much that we don't even use the words marketing and branding. We use the words messaging to make it seem less mundane, less corporate, maybe. But these are harsh realities of the world we live in, okay? And I'm one of the guys that you don't know this, I don't talk about it very much, why would you know it? I'm one of the guys that reinvented marketing, okay? So when I look at this situation, I see really elementary mistakes and you can call it messaging if you want, but I want to talk, before we get into those mistakes, I want to talk about the reason that center and the left, right, don't like to think about the world this way. Well, why not? We assume that people are rational. We assume that if we just present them the right information and the right facts, that they will come to the right conclusions. And unfortunately, the world doesn't work that way, right? That's human beings are fallible things. Especially in this day and age, we're bombarded with disinformation and we're all stressed out and worn out and, lies are kind of broadcast at us and beamed straight at us a million times a day and you don't know how to make ends meet. And, so in an age like this, expecting people to be rational agents and, kind of enlightened, self-interested actors is impossible, okay? And that is where messaging, if you want to call it, or branding and marketing come in, and why they're so important. Because we're not talking to rational people in the world anymore, right? You can see that the world is kind of going crazy and people are sort of losing their minds. And the more that that happens, the more that narratives, okay, and stories and sets of meaning become important. So the way that I transformed marketing was creating this thing called meaningful brands. It's not important, but the point is that you have got to find a way to make people resonate with you. And the Democrats are doing a terrible job of that. We can criticize Biden all we want on policy grounds. Yes, he's made some mistakes. Overall, he's been not a bad president. But that's not even the point. The point is that nobody should be trusting Trump more, right? That's the point. That tells you something fundamental is going wrong here. What are the mistakes the Democrats are making? Elementary 101 level mistakes. I'm going to make my pained face again. There are three mistakes, and I'll take you through them. So, number one, the Democrats have no brand. Number two, Biden doesn't really have a very effective brand. And number three, which is related to number one and number two, their communication strategies are from a different era, man. It's the 21st century, and they're acting like it's the 1970s or the 1980s. So let's go through each of those things. So if I ask you, what does the GOP stand for? Everybody can tell me. Whether you like it or you don't like it is immaterial. Everybody can tell me. Right? They'll say, well, the GOP stands for guns or theocracy or limiting people's rights or, scapegoating minorities. So what? It doesn't matter. So whether you like it or don't like it, everybody knows that's a brand. It's a set of meanings. We all know what the GOP stands for. Nobody has to explain it to us. Nobody has to tell us. Bang, like that, we know and we can talk about it. So now contrast that with the Democrats. If I say to you, what are the Democrats? What do they stand for? Can anybody tell me? Nobody has a clue. We can't say things like, oh, well, they stand for European-style social democratic social contract in America, or they stand for, a much more enlightened foreign policy. Or what? Doesn't matter, right? These are just ideas. It doesn't matter what it is, really, yet. And we'll come to that. The point is, nobody can say it. Okay, now think about Apple. Think about Nike. Now think about the Democrats. You see what I mean? This is not modern branding. It's not modern messaging. It's not modern communications. When we encounter something like Apple or Nike, we know what it's about. And even we feel certain feelings, right? We may feel a sense of awe, or a sense of affinity, or a sense of respect, or a sense of desire. It doesn't matter. That's good branding and good marketing, right? Those guys are playing the game in a very intelligent way. The Democrats, what do you feel? Nothing. I mean, and it goes right down to the very basics of the thing. The typography and the colors and the logos. I mean, that's really elementary stuff, and it almost has no bearing on the end game. But the point is, the Democratic brand is empty. So, of course they're not connecting with people. Now let's come to Biden. Biden's brand, is even more problematic at the moment, right? They have because the Democrats don't have a brand, and they don't know how this game is played anymore, they have let the Biden brand become a little bit toxic. So now people say that he's too old, or that this or that. Doesn't matter, right? But nobody gives him credit for his accomplishments, and they're real accomplishments. And I think that has to be said. Again, it's not a political point. This is the economist in me talking. For America to have an industrial policy for the first time in 50 years, big accomplishment. For it to have an industrial policy that is export-based and focused on turning the economy around, big deal. Excellent ideas. This stuff is not being communicated well, and it leaves space open for Biden to be branded in a negative way by the other side, to be portrayed as old or feeble or confused or whatever. It's an elementary level mistake. If I say to you, what is Joe Biden's brand? Well, there was a moment where the internet took it upon themselves to create a guy called Dark Brandon. And Dark Brandon was the source of a great deal of amusement and mirth and excitement. But that the internet created Dark Brandon tells us how clueless the Democrats are at this, because that means there was a space left open, right? People were like, hey man, be this guy. This is what we need. This is what we want. The Democrats over time have walked away from that Dark Brandon persona. I'm not saying that, you have to embrace dark brand and that's the brand. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that there was a hole there, the internet filled it, and then the Democrats walked away from it, and today the Biden brand is totally undefined, apart from being defined in a negative way by the other side. Old, feeble, confused, whatever. Elementary level mistakes, man. You don't have a brand for your institution, the Democrats, that resonates, that works, that exists at all. You don't have a real brand for your contender, Biden. Elementary mistakes. That's why I make my pained face. So how do we fix this stuff? Well, to build a brand these days, we need to use modern techniques. And here is where I really know that the Democrats are, oh man, that they're not there, right? That their teams are not conversant, that they're not in the 21st century with the rest of us. Think about the Obama campaign again. They were using all the latest platforms. Whether it was, back then Twitter, or Obama would write posts, or speechwriters would, and they put it under his name on Medium. There was a huge embrace of the latest platforms and the latest technologies. Biden's team doesn't do any of that. They play messaging like it's the 1970s or something, right? There's no Biden persona on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube, anywhere. But this is where, especially young people, get their news and information, for better or worse. So the last place that we saw Biden kind of appear in the media was the Washington Post. And he wrote an article about his Israel-Gaza foreign policy, which a lot of people don't like, and he defended it. So really ham-fisted messaging, man. How do you dispel the myth that Biden is old and feeble and clueless? Hey, man, get on TikTok with the young people and just start talking. I mean, it's not complicated. But his team is totally clueless about this. They don't know how to build a brand in the 21st century. Now think about the GOP and their embrace of modern technologies. Man, Trump is like super online, right? Most of the GOP guys are like super online. They're constantly generating stupid scandals and headlines, and they got the world glued to their idiocy because they're super online. Now, Biden's team says, hey man, take a softly approach and backpedal and don't play that game and don't be part of it. It's not working. You cannot just walk away from the modern media landscape. This is the disaster that results when you do. You need to have a real media strategy. You need to have a real brand strategy. And you need to have a real communication strategy. This is elementary level stuff. Now, the reason that I'm getting a bit exercised is that it's so basic. Guys, it shouldn't be happening. So this is the level that they're playing the game at. They don't know what they're doing, and they don't even know what they're doing isn't working until it isn't working. And then they panic. So they keep making the same mistakes. And that's why I predicted a few months ago that the Democrats are blowing it. And so here we are. Can this situation be saved? Can it be resolved? Maybe, I don't know, probably, but not this way. It cannot go on this way, right? The more that they play this ham-fisted game of not refusing to engage with modern communications, modern platforms, to walk away from it, to say, hey, we are gonna, kind of play it softly, and all that does is leave an opening for the other guys to define your brand. The more that we have this arrogance towards marketing and branding, messaging, communications, the more the other side will pummel us. The more the far right will win. Because they are right there, right? The far right loves modern communications. They're so adept with it. Our side is completely clueless and ham-fisted at it. So of course they're winning around the globe now. Because our side has this arrogance. It has this hubris. This is beneath us. People should be rational, self-interested. If we give them the information and the facts, they should come to us. That's not how the world works. It's not how the world works for anyone, by the way. Even somebody like Apple, who is much, much more, kind of well-known than the Democrats globally, they have to play the game, marketing and branding and communications, all the time. You see how carefully Apple takes it. You see how indifferent the Democrats and a lot of political parties in the center left are towards it. That is why they're losing. It's not because their policies are bad, man. 70% of Americans say they want the stuff that the Democrats are offering them, even if it doesn't go far enough. But they don't vote for it, right? Because they don't trust them. They don't trust them because these fundamental building blocks of relationships, and that is what a brand really is, are missing. They're not there. Okay? So that's a lot. That's like a mini class in branding. By the way, if you ever wanted one. I hope that helps. I hope it didn't make your head explode. Sorry if I got a little worked up, but it really pains me to see these guys making these elementary mistakes over and over and over again when so much is on the line. I guess in the next video, we'll discuss what is on the line, right? How bad would another Trump presidency be for America and the world? And the answer is even more catastrophic than you think. But we'll get into that next time. Thank you.